I don't hear you yet.
Test, test, test.
Yeah, that's better.
All right. We're going to put it on mute until we're ready. Everybody hear me all right? Anybody out there yet? Doug Fowler here, Pulaski Talks, sitting here in the audience with none other than... Oh, I got to mute the damn TV. I always forget that. I bet my kids and my grandkids are watching this and I can find the mute button. There. That's better. No wonder I was getting this backblast. So anyway, got Nick Pappas in the office with me. When we transition to show you see Nick's lovely face on the office. Nick, appreciate you coming back. Yeah. You know, we got a welcome. It'll catch up. It takes a little bit to catch up. So there you are. Oh, yeah, you got your hair. You got more than I do. That's why I wear a hat. So anyway, first off, before we get too further down the road, apologize to any and all below. My MacBook failed on me, or the installation of the software last time, so I had to beg apologies from Nick to be deferred and reschedule it for today. And also, if you're listening at home or abroad or wherever, if you think we need to turn up the mic, just say so. And also, Cable America was not at fault for my low speed issues. It just turns out that I am not as good as a geek as I thought. I actually had the tech in my office upstairs in the studio, and I was getting 1 gig as it was. So it was my fault. So hats off to Cable America. And if you're a subscriber to Cable America's services, reach out to them, tell them you'd like to see them sponsor the show. We're all about getting sponsors. So we unmute Nick. There you go. You're on live.
Right on.
There you go. We're going to have a little back noise back and forth. I can't stop that furnace while I can. We turn the furnace off. That's why I was telling you I put a HVAC in my. That furnace is loud.
Yeah, it is. I can hear it over the headsets.
I can too.
Not only that, it's like an ice box down here. You like it cold, eh?
We like it cold. We like it cold. We can handle it off for a little bit.
Where's your sound engineer at?
Well, yeah, see, we put him in prison.
Did you?
Yeah. So anyway, let's get started. I got I got a list of questions we received from the audience at large via text. Appreciate whoever that was. Great question, and we'll ask it. Probably kick it off right off the bat. And also, we got a lot of questions, about 10 questions coming in via email, messaging, Facebook, PM, and everything else. So if you're interested in Nick's biography or background, whatever, check out his Facebook page. He's got his whole diatribe, a whole list of things you got on your flyer. If you see him in the Walmart hallway, aisleway, grab a flyer from him. I'm sure he's got them.
Yeah, or just stop and ask me.
Just stop and ask him, or hit him up on Facebook Live, or his Facebook page too. So before I get started, I want to get this text question out of the way because it kind of hits right at the heart of the other ones. The other questions.
It's always interesting because you never know what's coming.
Exactly. So here's the question that I got. How will you support local schools with commission partnerships of SRO? Now, I think what would help me and probably the viewing audience and listening audience at home and far away, what is an SRO is?
A licensed police officer.
In the schools.
Yeah, assigned to the schools. And it's usually done through a memorandum of understanding that's agreed upon by the school and the agency, typically the sheriff's office and the local agency that they're in. So like Waynesville, St. Robert, Crocker, Dixon used to have one. I don't know if they still do off the top of my head.
They do. They have I believe Steve chimed in last with their interview with Mr. Ball. They do have a resource officer, maybe not an SRO. Maybe Steve will chime in and refresh my memory.
School protection officer,
Yeah, I
maybe.
think so. Yeah.
Okay. There's actually all of them, whether you're a school safety officer, a school protection officer, or an SRO. The statute and the Code of State Regulations, Missouri Code of State Regulations, actually has guidance set down. You'll accomplish so many hours for each one.
Right.
Same way with SRO. I think the biggest thing with the SROs is the schools are very diverse, not just in population, but in how they conduct business. And I understand DESE has guidelines the school have to follow, and then the schools will adapt from what I've seen for their student population. But I think the biggest thing is being able to communicate with the school and the community, and then having a memorandum of understanding in place that fits both.
Right.
Because the SROs, a lot of people are like, well, I've heard it all, kindergarten cops, whatever. The community, I don't think, understands how much the SROs actually pull off of a local agency. It is a tremendous amount, that they deal with, that the local agency would typically deal with. It may not generate a case. It may not go to the JOs or anything of that nature, but it's something they would still have to deal with. SROs take care of that. As long as it's on the school grounds, the buses, school functions, that type of thing, that's their jurisdiction. And when it impacts that, they take care of all that. And it's a huge burden off of law enforcement when it's done right. The big thing is making sure if they're, say assigned to the sheriff's department, that MOU addresses, naturally they're state law enforcement or they're post-certified law enforcement officers. We need to make sure we're getting them the training they need. If they need advanced training that's maybe unique to the school, which is something I'd have to delve into, and it's kind of on a hit list of countless things to accomplish, but making sure that they have what they need to accomplish that job safely, especially legal training. There's a lot of touchy ground when you're dealing with SROs, but make sure that, they get the training they need, that the schools are getting what they need, that the SROs are a fit for the school. But I think something that's kind of overlooked with a lot of SROs, that's kind of a stepping stone sometimes for them. To try, because they want to advance, right? So they'll step outside the norm. They might step away from patrol to go to an SRO slot so they can learn it. And then they might go somewhere else to learn in a different field. So we need to make sure that they are also, have long-term goals that we can help with. The SROs are typically, not always, but typically paid by the school district and an employee of the school district.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, but that does not mean, if they carry a sheriff's badge, we have an obligation to make sure they're trained.
Right.
We're going to be liable for it. We need to make sure they're trained and taken care of as well, because we take care of them, they're taking care of the school.
Now, for instance, the Freedom Elementary right up the road from me is in St. Robert.
Yep.
Would that be under the oversight of St. Robert Police or still the sheriff?
Looking at the statute, it'd be both.
Okay.
That you get commission through both.
Okay.
And I have never really looked at the SROs here, so and seen who all the SROs are. But most school districts are, I believe Crocker's now is, commissioned through both. Lakeway would be just county. I want to throw a caveat. There's another school district that a lot of people don't think about in school. I'm not going to mention them, but if they can't afford one, then we might want to look at getting an officer that's trained that can at least go there and handle those duties. So maybe we can't assign them full time, but make sure they get their SRO training. And when the school calls, we can handle those situations. And that's kind of the goal, but you don't shy away. A lot of people, I work in a county now that we don't have SROs.
Right.
And there's a lot of schools, and there's some very large schools. And we got one guy that typically gets dealt, a
deputy?
Yeah. And great deputy. And he is the go-to guy. But the schools can consume a lot of time. Not their fault.
Sure.
It's just the way it is. So I see it weekly, no less than weekly. So the SROs do pull a lot of weight, and they are a vital asset to any agency. A lot of people may not see that. They may think, well, they don't do anything. They just walk around. They do a lot.
Well, and I look
think
at
people
it
underestimate that.
And I look at it from perspective, somebody's got to answer the call.
Yep.
Because at one time, at some time, whatever the episode is within the school environment, it's going to escalate beyond the point to where an education professional can handle, and it becomes the time for law enforcement to engage. And if there's nobody right there, how long would it take for the sheriff's department and the draw? Say, for instance, we only got sometimes two on staff right now in Pulaski County.
Yeah, 2 to 3. It just depends.
And if they're at the other side of the county,
And I'm telling you right now, I commend them. A lot of people beat up on them, but when you go to a domestic, and this is in line with what you're talking about, they're going to roll too deep.
okay,
That's one of the number one ways officers get injured and killed is through a domestic.
Yeah.
And you read about it all the time. If you pay attention to the news, officers getting shot and killed responding to a domestic disturbance. But it does pull them away from the area. So there's a lot of give and take. You know, I'm in a county where we may just have 1 or 2 on as well. It gets a little hairy for the guys.
I can imagine.
When your backup's 30 minutes out, it gets a little shaky.
Well,
I work small town still. When you're on the corner of a county and the game's on, it can get a little sticky.
Well,
So,
it always concerns me thinking about the deputies that are out there in the corner of a county and how much we're expecting them to do, but sometimes with so little.
yeah,
We always complain, you're hearing the news that the soldiers pay and all that's underpaid, but these guys are out there, their lives are on the line.
Yep.
And that call's going to come in domestic, mental health issue, something going on, and they got to go. They
Yep.
got to answer the call.
and the cavalry will be coming.
Oh, sure, but they're
tell you-
not there.
Not right then. And I don't want to drift too far off
Sure,
topic.
that's
We got a
fine.
little time, but a lot of people don't see. You know, we can have our differences.
Sure.
The candidates, we can all have our differences, right? But I think it's real important for the people to understand that if the call comes out, I don't care who you are,
Yeah.
we're coming.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I get along with you or not, we're
Yeah.
coming. And people don't see that necessarily. So that backup is a ways out. So getting back to our original topic of the schools, they are it
Yeah.
until we get there.
Yeah.
And we be in whatever agency's coming. And if it's a school, you can better believe the cavalry's probably coming. And if you carry a badge and gun, they're going.
Yeah.
You know, the kids, nobody's going to play around with the safety of the kids. We're coming, and we're coming hot.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people don't see that. And the other thing I commend SROs on, a lot of people don't realize it, is there's a lot of mentoring going on with the kids. A lot of people just think it's the security,
Right.
but they go through DARE programs, great programs. They go through a lot of training over time. They may not get it all in one lump sum. Every year they have the SRO conference. They get all their legal updates. It's about 40 hours long. So there's a lot of things they do for the kids beyond just provide. Yes, they are providing the safety and security
Sure.
investigations that may involve the school, the liaison, all those items. But they're also providing, some mentorship in something, because let's face it, a lot of kids come from broken homes.
Sure.
They come from troubled homes, and the SRO can be seen as that stability. Sometimes I've seen it personally. So they actually offer quite a bit more than just that safety and security. So what would I do? I'd continue to try and grow them, try and have the best SROs we can for the school districts, realizing the SRO by statute also has to adhere to their policies.
Right.
By the board policies. They're employed by the school districts unless it's a SRO grant. So, but they're employed, so they also have to adhere to their policies and procedures as well as enforcing the law. That's where that balance comes into
And
play.
do they also have to follow the policies or procedures in the sheriff's department or the
For
municipality?
reporting requirements, they'll have all that, or whatever agency
Sure,
they're
okay.
assigned to. So,
Being ex-military, you want to know who's my left and my right lane and who
So-
do I report to?
I think a lot of people, you hear a lot of jokes in law enforcement, right? Because the road guys are ones that's really, they're taking the heat. They're really out there, and they're the ones. They're the front people. It's
Well,
kind
sure.
of like the Army. They're the infantry of the law enforcement.
They're out there,
so to
LRP,
speak.
long range
Yeah.
reconnaissance.
But the SRO program pulls a lot
Yeah.
off of the local agencies in just handling things that we would normally have to and it may be something simple like a kid didn't show up to school.
Sure.
We used to get a lot of that. They do that well-being check for us, what's going on, especially if they come from a troubled family.
Sure.
We would go out. They make those contacts a lot of times. Depends on school districts.
Yeah.
But they do a lot that people don't see. And I think they're a really vital asset to provide that first line safety and security, the mentorship. There's a lot to it.
Would it be an understatement to say that they're underappreciated sometimes?
Oh, yes, by far.
By everybody.
By everybody. So did I answer that question?
Yeah, I think we went we kicked that dead horse. But if whoever submitted that question via text, if we didn't answer it, please chime in, or call us.
Yeah, shoot him a text.
Yeah.
I thought I hit it pretty good.
I think you did too. So we're going to segue into the questions that I've received such far. My own questions, some from the audience and such. And that's what you'll see me waving this paper around. I print out a copy from all the interview candidates and whatnot, whoever's here, so they can follow along, get the crayons out if they need to be, just like me, and we can get some questions. So one of the questions I received, we'll go from top to bottom. Can you describe the most significant changes you implemented in your last agency during your tenure?
I would say it was the thoroughness of the investigations and the complete. The first year I was there, as the assistant chief, we were averaging, from the history and the reporting that I could pull up at the time, 20 cases, 25 through the state, everything else to go through municipal. We upped it the first year to over 100 cases going through the state, plus what we did through municipal, and we pretty well maintained that. It dwindles down. Once you start really putting pressure on it, it dwindles down.
Right.
We were the first one.
We're talking about the crime problem, stuff like that. Okay. Now
we were averaging anywhere to 20, 30 drug cases a year. So the quality of the patrol picked up, and of course you always make people mad when you start running traffic.
Well,
whatever.
sure.
But the timeliness of the response, and the quality of the response. In other words, if there's something to be done, we would handle business. The other thing is, we were the first agency in the county to start doing the DEA drug take back, which I actually still do for another agency here. We did we implemented a kids fishing derby. This actually had nothing to do other than the agency actually sponsored it. We had Bass Pro send us stuff.
Really?
Local businesses gave us tackle boxes. So about 4 years we did it, we had to take a break because of COVID. Health department was like, no. I was like, okay, that's kosher. I got it. But we averaged about 60 kids, and every kid walked away from that with something.
Oh, that's awesome.
Fishing pole, new tackle box, top 3 got to pick what they wanted. And then we always had leftovers. Wow. So, but there was all the local businesses would donate to it. The store would donate hot dogs and stuff. Council would come out, cook hot dogs for the kids.
Oh, wow, that's good.
Popcorn, icy machines, icy machines and snow cone machines. That's what I'm looking for. Snow cones.
That's small town at its best, right there.
Yeah. So it went good. So we worked really hard on if you called, we'd show up. We couldn't always give you the answer you wanted.
Sure.
That's the nature of the beast when you wear a badge. But I think the quality of the investigation went up tremendously.
Okay.
The training was difficult to overcome, though.
Oh, I can imagine. Plus, it being a smaller department, your hands-on training as well with your new officers.
Yeah, it was condensed. Actually, I think that was your second comment or question.
Yeah, the key challenges.
One of the key challenges was actually there is kind of a culmination of several things. One was pay.
Right.
So it's very hard to recruit. Right. This is not being in the city or any city, small town city. But it is very hard to compete with a municipality like St. Robert, Waynesville, based on their tax revenue. So recruiting was extremely difficult. So when you got somebody, you had to make sure they were a good fit, that we could get them trained, and that they wanted to stay. And that was a big thing. And then competing against other agencies, because they'd come, or they'd use us as a stepping stone. They'd come in, they'd get their feet wet, and they're going to another agency after they get the experience.
We talked about that in your one of the last interviews. I was always concerned about, St. Robert offers very competitive salaries, and now that thankfully the sheriff's department's offering a lot better.
It's getting better, yeah.
But I look at the Missouri Sheriff's Organization website or a Facebook page, and they're hiring all of they're it's getting better and better. It's bigger the city, bigger city. Also, obviously, that ties directly to the tax base.
Yeah. Well, I think patrol's getting really to jump their pay, and I mean significantly.
Well, that's good.
Well, the problem is they're going to just suck all the bodies out of all the other agencies, and we're right back to square one.
Well, and me growing up in Iowa, I know that if the town can't afford to pay municipal police, the sheriff's got to do it, or they pay the sheriff's department to do it. And if the sheriff's department's already stretched razor thin, you're only going to get what you can get.
Yeah. So the other obstacle was budget constraints. Again, it's tax-based revenue, man.
Sure.
It is what it is. So, you still had to keep up with the times. So there was a lot of grant writing, which I was successful at. My predecessor was also very successful at grant writing. So, identifying the shortcomings up front, knowing when we got to get it replaced, and then being able to find that funding avenue to get it. It was a constant juggle, but between budgets, what we need, when do we need it by? If a radio goes down, a car goes down, we're hosed. So, and an average radio, Moswin radio, still runs, up to $5,000. And then if you get a grant, the programming is included. But, if you're looking at a brand new Moswin handheld, like Patrol carries, they're $5,000.
Goodness gracious. I need to invent new police radio. Yeah.
So, and you can get those on grants and interoperability. So there's multiple factors. There's key challenges, and then keeping the guys motivated, keeping them going, not losing focus. You keep arresting the same person over and over and over. It's the nature of the beast.
Sure.
The courts can only do so much. Everybody wants to blame somebody, unfortunately, and it does become frustrating. But that's the biggest thing: the money, the equipment. You look at Patrol; they get all the new toys, so to speak. Equipment. Car breaks down, it gets fixed.
Sure.
Car goes down, we may have to wait. If it gets pricey, excuse me. So, turbo went out on one of our cars. It was several $1,000s repaired. That was almost half my maintenance budget gone.
It's gone
at the beginning of the year. So what do?
You do what you can.
You do what you can. So
or find a saddle.
Yeah. There's people out there that have horses
too. I can almost see that happening.
Yeah. So
this next question, and this I want to expand on that. The question I came up with, or I can't remember if somebody else did. How did your approach to law enforcement evolve over your time in office? I want to expand that. You've been in law enforcement how many years?
27 years.
27 years. From the day you pin a badge, and that's a law of evolvement. But if you were to have to summarize that for the audience, or for to somebody you talk to on the street, how has it evolved from the day you first pinned it on a badge to now? What are some of the big takeaways?
I think the biggest thing is, in the military. So when I was an agent, right, I was pretty much almost my whole CID time was a supervisory agent.
Yeah.
In some capacity, and then I retired as the agent in charge. So the military, if somebody was a victim of crime, to be quite honest, I didn't stress feedback.
Yeah.
They had somebody at JAG that handled all that, and they dealt with the victim. We move on to the next case, right?
Right.
You get into the civilian sector, and what I found was, you respond. You make the case. It's not over. So you make the case, you file it. I learned real quick and in a hurry, at least let them know we got it filed.
Yeah.
Hey, we sent it to the prosecutor's office. Because otherwise what happens is they think we're doing nothing.
Yeah.
And the feedback to the community, the technology is crazy within the law enforcement community, as much technology as they had. And I love it because I say, you can be an expert in one thing.
Sure.
But what detectives are, I don't care who they are. I've done it 27 years.
Yeah.
We're experts at using experts. I have a whole laundry list of people I can reach out. Okay, this is what I got. I need help. This is what I need. How do I get it?
Right.
legally, of course.
Somebody's done it before. No need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, and the laws have changed or continue to grow. Like juvenile law changed pretty significantly on who's a juvenile, who's not. So technology's been the biggest factor as far as involvement. You know, when I first got into CID, computer crimes were almost under, you know, how many computers we have. Well, I didn't see the first one until halfway through my Army career. We were still pen and paper. I think you're older than me, and I'm pretty sure you remember those days.
I remember that. I could type. I got some good jobs I could type.
Heck yeah. Whiteout was your friend. So I think the ability to use the technology as well is what's evolved more than anything. And then my perspective has been how I approach people when there's an issue. A lot of people say, well, you can be pretty abrasive. Well, I can be if I get pushed to that point.
Sure.
But the biggest thing is I'm not necessarily going to tell you what you want to hear, because I could tell you whatever you want to hear, and that's not going to be the answer. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear and what we can and cannot do. And if you don't like the answer, I'll tell you, hey, well, here's who you can go talk to. If they come up with something different, by God, we'll look at it.
Yeah.
But the resources as well, how many resources we can touch, how many other agencies have expertise. It's just tremendous. You know, it used to be pretty much type of report, you're done. Not anymore.
The file cabinet, mile long and mile deep.
So technology and really, I think community relations has evolved. Some say it's bad. I think it's just timing.
Yeah.
You know, that's the biggest thing. So
going on to the next.
Man, you got quite a few on here.
I do.
They've been busy.
They've kind of rolled. People are asking questions.
Hey, it's all good. Let's hit it.
Let's go down to in what ways did you work to strengthen relationships between the police department and the residents in your last agency?
Pretty much the same way I'm doing it now, which is the feedback.
Yeah.
You know, if there's an issue, before you go blowing us up, yelling at us on social media or whatever, come talk to us and let's see what the issue is. And then let's see if we can get you a result within our legal boundaries that we can do.
Right.
You know, a lot of people, and I know this sounds trivial, but like animal control is always a huge thing in every small town, right?
Sure.
We don't have animal control in the small towns. So guess who the animal control is? The guy with the badge.
That's right.
And until you get a mean dog, you know, dogs will fit in a prisoner cage, by the way, just for the record. So the biggest thing is the communication. You know, I don't hide in the office. I don't hide in a safe. You got an issue, come and talk to me. And it was that feedback. Hey, let's go hit it. What is it? Let's go out to the house. What is the issue? And then to research it, because I don't have nobody's going to have all the answers. And to get the feedback. And I'll tell you, and as a sheriff, chief, assistant chief, detective, it doesn't matter. If I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. I'll go find the answer. And if I don't have the answer and can't find it, somebody's going to have an answer.
We live in the speed of now.
Oh, yeah.
It's immediate knowledge and immediate feedback's wanted, and how many likes can I get? And if there's a vacuum, it's just like matter. Matter will create itself, and they'll start stirring the pot on the Facebook, on social media, and then you're trying to play catch up with this. And when you could be, or any officer could spend their time a lot better than trying to figure out how many. What do I got to respond to? What is going on social media? If your boss comes to you and say,
and it happens all
you can't
every agency encounter, all of them will encounter it, and you're like, I don't know anything about it, and it happened all the time. You go, it happens. I don't know about the other agencies, you know, as far as their concerns, but I know they do have those where they'll go in and counsel's like, "What's up with this?" And they're like, "What?" Because they'll hit social media, but it's never brought to them. It took some time. My predecessor and I both had worked on it, and that was a big thing, is that feedback. Come to us first.
Yeah.
And then, hey, if we don't give it to you, feel free to go to social media. But do whatever you need to do. I'll give you the phone number to KY3. But, you know, talk to your agency. That was a big thing. Come to the door, ring the bell, call, whatever it may be. And
I think and it segues nicely into going back to a previous interview with you and one of your campaign, what's not opponent in the campaign, is the transparency.
Critical.
It's critical.
Absolutely critical.
But I think what would also help that I do not think is in place with the current sheriff's department is a formal, established, built up feedback mechanism.
Yep.
That if you want feedback from the department, this is where you go. Don't hit Facebook or Instagram or all these other social media outposts. I'm not on there. I'm out solving cases. But if you want to reach the sheriff, that's what I would say. If you win it or any other.
So here's the thing. So a lot of people don't want, if you came to me and said, hey, I got this problem, right? I don't want everybody on a plan. No.
Right.
And I'm going to come back to Doug and say, hey, here's the solution, or here's what we can or cannot do. Right. Others may say, hey, I want to know what's going on with this. And others want to know. Well, in that case, I'll answer it on social media. So everybody knows, right? As far as transparency goes, reverting back, keeping on topic, but going back to another one of the things we implemented was what I started doing was in the council reports, which was done every month.
Right.
I'd put the total number of calls for service in that. You saw everything. How many assist other agencies, how many burglar alarms we went to, how many whatever. You could see we didn't give you addresses. We're not going to violate their privacy. We don't want people driving by. But you would see all those calls and how many we did for that month. And that was every month we did that. And I broke it down. The previous chief, I believe, would say, well, this is the number.
Right.
Well, I would go on our dispatch, our CAD, which was through the communication center. I would pull down all those calls and I would log it just as I saw it. So, because, we call them up, hey, we got this, and they generate the call. So all that was in there. In the monthly report, all our bills were in there. You could see every dime I spent, where it went, how it went, right? I could account for all of it. Yeah. Calls for service, everything. And that's real important that the people see that regardless.
I agree.
It's all there if people just ask. But
I think it's all about transparency, keeping not the voters, but the public informed.
I think absolutely. And the other flip side, look at our national government right now, man. I'm telling you that I could run off on conspiracy theories all day, but
you just don't know who to trust.
Yeah, the transparency, if you can show them, it's a little easier to swallow. And so I just laid it out there. Here it is. There's certain things we can't by law release, certain personnel action, whatever. But you look at a CALEA, which is the Council for Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies, right? It's a national accreditation,
right?
Which is a long-term goal of mine for the Sheriff's Department. But one of the really neat things about that accreditation is community-oriented, based, all about transparency. They throw out numbers, everything from use of force to your stats. I mean, it's all there. You see it all, right? It's good for insurance too, for the agency. But the transparency is key, so they can see what you're doing. Well,
this goes back from if you're a bean counter, it's an audit, an outside audit. Somebody's looking up the books and say what's going on. This is fact, and this is separate fact and fiction. Now, I want to branch off here. You're a deputy coroner as well, correct?
Yeah.
For Pulaski County.
Yeah.
I just noticed that bringing up the stats that are being publicized between you and the coroner, they're being publicized now.
Yeah, Roger does that. Roger, okay. So before I actually, for my own knowledge,
right,
and I shouldn't speak on Roger's behalf, so I'm going to be very careful about what I say. But
he put it out there. It's open.
Did he? Yeah, okay, so we're good. Okay, so what I did was I started a real simple spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And it was really just for my knowledge.
Right.
Hey, how many OD deaths are we encountering? Yeah. So I started the year I got in, which is 18. And I just started, calculating it. And that list was not just ODs, but it was, say heroin 1, which means there was 1 heroin, and I listed every drug that was involved in that death and how many was attributed to that. And I started tracking that. Roger, actually took it over. I never publicized it, but Roger has expanded on that. He's expanded on it quite a bit. Actually, he's trying to grow that. So, that's been released. I may speak out of turn. Roger, don't kill me if I do. But I believe he actually provides those stats to the drug court as well. I know the prosecutor was getting them before because I had provided the prosecutor's office for his information.
Well, it's on the Facebook page too.
So those numbers are factual. Those are not some estimate. Those
Right.
are hard numbers. This is what we got.
I'd like to have him come down. We could talk about what he's seen so far. If you do, pinch him.
Yeah, I'll ask him.
See if he'll come online for.
Oh yeah, and he's a talker, so you better have something.
We'll have coffee or something. Or
Yeah. So
cigars or something. Now here we go. Let's get back to the questions.
all right.
In your last agency, what strategies did you employ to address criminal activity and drug issues in the area, in your municipality?
Oh, you just had to throw the drug issues in there, didn't you?
I had to,
So there was a lot of it was intelligence based.
Sure.
So you don't just go out. We're small, right? So that agency typically, unless I had a grant going,
Yeah.
was typically one guy.
Yeah.
Right. Unless I was there, which was all the time.
Right.
But a lot of it was intelligence based. So we knew who to look for, what to look for, and that type.
Right.
Because small agency, we don't have time to waste and just go on fishing expeditions. So there's a lot of intelligence based policing in there. We use a lot of traffic grants to get dope. I can tell you, if you look statistically speaking, we were generating our dope cases was way up there. We didn't make a lot of, we did make some delivery cases. We did make a couple of distribution cases over time, but a lot of ours was, we did target, and people were going to get mad users because, well, there's no other way to get them into treatment.
You're right.
The courts can do that. We can't.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have a diversion program, but on the street level, when you're tackling the same people over and over, people with warrants, we'd watch the warrants. Who's got one? We're
Right.
going after it. They knew you come in, we're looking.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's intelligence based, a lot of information sharing between the agencies, keeping the guys focused, not just saying, okay, go out and run the road. Hey, watch for this, X, Y, Z, specific assignments, problem areas. The town's not big like any other. So,
Well, it's about intelligence sharing amongst agencies or municipalities or sheriff's department. Did that occur?
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We, to this day, all the agencies still talk.
I can't imagine them being in a vacuum.
No, and you don't do that. So, first of all, if you got, hypothetically, you got a dealer.
Yeah.
And he's traveling from point A to point B. You don't want him in your town, but you don't want to send him to your neighbor either, right? Because just like what happens in Crocker is going to happen in Richland.
Sure.
Same people is going to operate in Dixon. They're going to be in Waynesville. So yes.
And then across the county and next county.
Oh yeah. So, well, they don't grow it here. So maybe some weed now,
Yeah.
but it's imported as well. So,
they're coming from somewhere.
yeah. So, I can tell you where I'm currently full-time at.
Sure.
I can't even tell you how many agencies, a lot, all the surrounding, and usually every week because something's going on. But there are, there's meetings held in different regions, Troop I, Troop F,
Sure.
all that. The agencies go, they share information or issues they're having. Hey, what solutions do you guys have? So, but to tackle the drug problem, you have to get focused. You have to follow intelligence, otherwise it becomes a fishing expedition. You have to vet it. So it's really focused, really narrow, especially for the smaller agencies.
Sure.
Where you don't have the manpower. So you got to get targeted.
You got to swing at some reasonable pitches.
Yes.
Now, breaking off a little bit, process-wise, an agency chief and a smaller agency go straight to the prosecutor. It doesn't have to go through the sheriff's department or
No.
You have a one-on-one relationship.
Sure. Yeah. So every agency goes, they file their cases separately and they go straight to the PA.
Okay.
So, sheriff department does theirs, we do ours, et cetera, et cetera. So each agency, and if they make a mistake, they answer for that mistake too. So,
that's for my own edification, right?
yeah,
there.
that's all good.
Let's go down here. We're going to tie in right into budget here, but this had to be a challenge. How did you ensure that your officers were well trained and equipped, training and equipment to handle unique challenges associated with being a law enforcement officer in that community?
The equipment was grant driven,
Really?
hands down. Oh yeah. New vests, we got grants for that. Radios for the car, we got grants for that. 2 brand new handheld Moslin, like I was talking about, we got grants for that. 2 MDTs, brand new. We got that through a nonprofit. It was Chiefs Association at the time, over $11,000.
Wow.
Doesn't sound like a lot. That's 2 years worth of equipment budget for us. back in the day, maybe even more than that. So it was almost all grant driven, the new stuff.
Zero impact to the budget.
Yeah. The where you have impact is the grant system switched from you get it then and we pay it to you pay up front, we reimburse.
Oh, gotcha.
So some cities may not be able to fork out that kind of money up front. That can get a little sticky. But training, we didn't have a big training budget, so free training is all we could do.
Sure.
And we would go to it. What we do is we only had a few people, so somebody's covering somebody's shift, so you might be pulling a double, but your buddy's getting some training, which comes back to help everybody.
Sure.
So a lot of, the sheriff's department used to put on training back in the day, guys that go to that, all post-certified training, so they get continuing education. So there's ways to do it that can be low impact. Where it does impact is if you don't have a lot of people,
right,
you got to give some coverage, so somebody's going to have to cover.
This segueing into transparency, we're backing into it. This next question.
Okay.
Second to the last question.
Okay.
Now, we've talked a little bit about it, but in the agency you were in, the last agency, what measures did you take to promote transparency in that agency? Because, you're taking over from somebody, good or bad.
Yeah.
Your predecessors are either good or bad or in between, so that everybody's looking at you. What's the new guy, new girl going to do? And how do were you able to promote transparency while at the same time accountability of your department?
The biggest thing was the calls for service, like
Right.
putting it in the council report. So, and that's public.
Yeah.
So you could pull it and see it. And if you took the time to go sunshine and request the CAD,
Yeah,
or the calls for service for that time period, you'd be able to vet it and see that, it was good, it was accurate. All the budget was in, I accounted for everything. So it was all in the city council report, all accessible to the public. When you go in, it's all laid out on a table. You can pick it up.
it's almost like you leave your checkbook laying out here. You want to see how much money?
Yeah, we don't have in a small agency. The other thing is people would ask questions. We would try to respond. There are certain cases that were pretty heavy. We had a homicide first one, probably 30 years.
Right.
A lot of people wanted a release, and I'll be honest, I didn't want to release anything until it was in Kevin's hands.
Yeah. Prosecutor.
Yeah, and Kevin Hellman, the prosecutor, to ensure the integrity of the case. We didn't want something sensitive getting out. And his office, I'm not sure if he actually prepared to release or not.
Sure.
But it came from his office to ensure the integrity of that case. So that was a big thing, was just getting the information in black and white that everybody can see. So if you looked at what the finances in the council report at the time, and you looked at receipts, they're going to match.
Yeah.
It was all there.
Credits and debits.
Yep. It was all there.
Well,
So,
but going back to what you're talking about, a major crime happens in a small community, and then it becomes a top priority. It probably goes without saying some things are going to have to put on the back burner.
oh yeah. So when that incident occurred, it was a Saturday. I had a part-time officer on. I get to call that morning, and he goes, "Chief, we got a homicide." I go, "Well, what?" And I've worked quite a few. I was like, on my way. And, naturally the phone starts ringing. What's going on? I don't have time. I don't
Right.
have time. I don't have time. The time I got there, which was really quick, already had the suspect in the back of the car,
Wow.
but, in a very short time, I found I had two different scenes. We got evidence, and I'm there with a part-time guy. I put everything else on the back burner.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about doing a press release right now. I'm not worried about, I've got a family I'm going to have to answer to.
Yeah.
I've got the deceased we got to do justice for. I got a suspect in the back of the car. I've got evidence in two scenes, and I'm a three full-time department at the time. Actually, maybe 2.5 back then. I can't remember. Half being a part-time guy. And, you just learn some things. You just take the rounds from the
Right.
public. The big thing is nobody else was at risk. We had the guy in custody.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to worry about warning the public about anything. We had him. It was a done deal. He's locked up. He's in cuffs. He's our guy. So public safety, scene security, press releases, gossip, that can all go to the wayside. We had business to take care of. So, and everybody was actually pretty understanding. They understood time it was all said and done. Yeah.
I'm going to leave you with a softball question.
Oh,
You
those are
hit it.
always fun.
If there was one or more thing you would like the voters to know of Pulaski County about you that they may or may not know, but would like to hear it again, or just don't know about you, what would you like them to know? So, like the voter you haven't talked to yet, but you just can't get to them. What would you like them to know about you going into this campaign season?
I think the biggest thing is I believe law enforcement, you want to be treated, you treat others like you would want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
And I take that to heart. I don't mind if somebody's gruff with me, just shoot me straight.
Yeah.
Right. So when I approach or my guys approach something, they knew, hey, just remember, if that was you, how would you want it handled? And knowing what you know as an officer, how would you want it handled? I don't take the easy way out. I take the right way. And the right way is not sometimes the easiest at all. And I don't let go of anything. So if I still have a statute of limitations in a case,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm still good and there's leads, we're going to run it. We're going to hunt the dog. We'll run the dogs till we can't run them no more. But I just believe in treating people the same way. If I called law enforcement, I would want to be treated. Yep. Awesome. And that's the way it is. And sometimes, yes, I am a little abrasive.
But that can happen.
Yeah, I was talking to one of my counterparts, one of my fellow candidates, and he made a comment. He goes, "You can be, you are a little abrasive at times." So I was like, "Well, when you work, 6.5 days a week, and
So there is some truth amongst friends, some.
Oh yeah, and honestly, we all talk. We have different approaches. Our qualifications vary greatly. All mine are up on Facebook. Sure. They can see it, my education, my background. Can I throw out a answer to a question somebody asked? Actually, it was the guy that called you last time.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So he wanted to know. I don't know if he's listening. I don't see him.
I don't see him. He hasn't.
Okay, he hasn't chimed on. Okay, that's probably good because he'd carry this on all night. He had asked me the question. It had to do with the military experience, right. I think. Is that correct?
Military experience versus military experience versus civilian experience, how they relate. And what kind of leadership positions have you held in those capacities? Okay, so if that's the question I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it might be a little longer. I'll try and hit all of it, so keep me straight. So in the military, as a CID agent, also for about 2 years, I held a supervisory agent position. So the biggest thing is the MP Corps, you branch out. The MP Corps can be really robust at times. So with CID, you're pretty much focused investigations,
sure.
Right? And so I supervised anywhere from 2 as a supervisory agent, anywhere from 2 to 4 agents at a given time every day, and of course, a casework. So the big thing is prioritization of leads, manpower, how to expend that manpower, that type of thing on those cases within mine. So like I worked fraud for several years, right? So those agents under me, I had to make sure, okay, are we following the leads? Are we getting warrants, the subpoenas? Are we hitting the right agencies, that type of thing, giving them guidance, and then following up. That don't include, by the way, you're a working supervisor. You don't get to sit back and take it easy. And then as a special agent in charge, you're kind of dual-hatted.
Sure.
So you're a det commander and a special agent in charge. So depending on
commander.
Yeah. So not only are you signing, everything from, say your NCORs and that type of thing, which are det commander duties, senior rater response. Yeah. So not only did you have those responsibilities as the commander, now you flip hats. Now you're the special agent in charge, and you're running that office every day in the conduct of criminal investigations. A lot of it is management. You did a lot of managing of manpower and time and structure, because your manpower was always no office. It's like every law enforcement agency in this county, I think, is understaffed.
Right.
We were no different. You have deployments, and they're going to all their ANOC, BNOC, which has now changed.
Sure,
So
sure.
I'm kind of showing my age a
All
little
the
bit.
professional development.
Yeah. So your professional development. So guess what? Now those cases don't stop.
Yeah.
CID ran on very strict standards. Guess what? Cases don't just get to sit until they come back. They're going to somebody else. So is it evenly divided? Can the agents handle the caseload? You know, are we taking care of our people? You have agents traveling all over the state. So I'd have to check. It may have changed, probably has. But this office used to handle everything south I-70 all the way down to like 60 plus counties into Arkansas. That's what we
Really?
covered. And if it was an Army Nexus, we were there. And trust me, they spent a lot of road time. So while you didn't necessarily have to budget for the money, what you did have to do is you had to be able to show the command your stats and why the manpower was needed for your given installation. This was
Sure.
all agencies, all the CID offices. So I understood manpower, strength. What am I looking for here?
Well, while you're thinking,
Not necessarily budgeting, but the
expenditure of the budget.
yes.
At least my experience, you get X number of dollars at the beginning of the fiscal year, and they're probably tracking how you
Yeah.
spend it.
So our stats would generate that.
Sure.
So prioritization was really big. And, you know, training, you know, in the Army was pretty much guided, you know, to move up.
Sure.
We all had ranks.
Yeah.
You had to go to certain training. You had to hold certain positions. So all that was a balancing act. So then you get into the civilian sector. I retired out, went to work for a sheriff as a detective here, reserve detective. We were averaging, myself and another detective, actually there's two others, we'd average 20 to 30 hours a week. At the time I got into civilian contracting, I was actually an instructor.
Right.
And I taught everything from WMD awareness to evidence collection overseas, right, in a hostile zone, because the chain of custody doesn't change just because you're in combat.
Sure.
Contrary to common belief. So I was teaching non-law enforcement soldiers
Right.
in evidence handling. That always was fun.
Wow.
Biometrics, you know, collecting biometrics, that type of thing. There's a lot I was teaching. So Clan Lab awareness, we were teaching National Guard, civil support teams in, again, evidence identification, Clan Lab awareness, that type of thing. From a law enforcement perspective, by the way, not necessarily, you know, they're trained experts
Sure.
in chemical, you know, response. We're looking at it from, yeah, you can go in and put the wet stuff on the red stuff, you know, as they say in a fire field. But what evidence are you going to wipe out beforehand? So documentation, that
Sure.
type of thing.
Same as a crime scene,
Yeah.
Pulaski County.
So I was also a law enforcement instructor at Sheriff's Academy. So, you know, I taught at the academy, taught everything except for the specialties, your hazmat, firearms, PPCT. I can't remember all the other specialties off my top head, but I taught crime scenes, officer well-being, interview interrogations, basic jail procedures, not in depth, but the basic jail procedures so they can go in and understand the basic jail operations. And then I continued on. I got out of contracting, traveling got old. I didn't retire to live out of a suitcase. And I went to work at another small agency here. They were down. I was like, sure, I'll come out and help. Took over the evidence room, continued to help. While it was not necessarily assigned duty, I helped with the larger investigations, training officers in basic evidence handling, you know, because to be quite honest, even in the academy, you get very minimal. It's,
Sure.
you know, you're getting a lot of training in a very condensed period of time.
Baseline training.
Yeah. I've been an FTO.
Field training
officer on the civilian side. But for everybody blows a gasket, no, I didn't go through the state training, but I'm familiar with it. Other than actually, there's no part of it I haven't done.
Yeah.
So you take what you get, so to speak.
Sure.
It was all governed, like our daily activity reports we used was based on what patrol did. So we followed those patrol's guidelines for the FTO program. Then I was assistant chief, left there after about 7 years, actually almost 8 years. And I'm a detective lieutenant. I really kind of oversee, well, minus my caseload. Unfortunately, my boss gave me the evidence room as well. I was like, gee, thanks. You know, I still help the deputies make sure, hey, you know, they get jammed up, I'm out with them, you know, giving them guidance on cases. I'm not going to necessarily supervise them. They have a corporal and a sergeant to oversee them. If there's issues, there's a chain of command. I try to adhere to that.
Sure.
So I'm still a licensed instructor. I still teach. I can teach via the academy, you know, say, hey, we want to host this training. It goes out to all the local agencies as well. So we can teach, and I do. So my experience, I've still maintained some type of leadership, supervisory, or training position pretty much almost my entire law enforcement career, if you will. So
that's awesome. I wrote this note down so I didn't forget.
Which note was that?
The one note. CID. Are all the cases federal, or just is it a mix?
It's a mix. So if there is no, some are, you know, but like there was a case, I can't remember the case. There was one on Fort Wood. There was no real federal statute that governed it. So we, within the UCMJ, there's an article that gave us the ability to assimilate state law. In other words, we could charge under state law, and we did that. Okay. So but UCMJ, if we're using, the only time we would assimilate state law is if there wasn't anything in the UCMJ that covered it, or we're dealing with a civilian, which then we would use United States Code or state law.
Now, would you seek out the prosecutor? Who would be the prosecutor? Is U.S. attorney or
the special U.S. attorney on Fort Wood we'd hand it to them, and they would do all the liaison and everything that needs to happen. Gotcha. So if we had a civilian on post that committed offense and went to the SALSA, and we presented it to him, and then he took it from him or her, right, depending on who it was.
And they would go with the local county.
Yeah, they would go to the local county, wherever they needed to go with it.
That's why I had to write that.
And it was a little different back then. I don't know about now. Back there, we didn't really, be honest, the only time we ever wrote a PC statement is we actually had to go off post for something. And that was a rarity, if ever. It was either founded or unfounded. If it was founded, we had enough probable cause, and it went to the JAG. Yeah. And then they handled it from there. Okay. Because they would write the charges and present it to the court.
I always want to know how that worked.
Yeah.
So we are at 1 hour and 3 minutes, so I had enough of your time.
Gee, thanks. Did we hit everything on the hit list?
I think we did.
Okay.
But as a heads up, the next interview, whenever you want it to be, and I'm going to invite the other candidates as well, talk about jail. The monkey in the room.
The elephant in the room. Boy, that's more of an elephant.
We need to talk about that because you touched on the accreditation of the department. Is there not an accreditation program for
the jail? Yeah.
What is it? You know,
it's I was researching it actually because it was something we've been talking about in a smaller agency here. We don't have a jail, by the way.
Sure.
But just because you can't afford accreditation is not cheap, by the way, and you pay for it.
Sure.
But just because you can't afford that accreditation does not mean you can't meet the standards of it. But there are, I believe it's through the National Institute of Justice or the Department of Justice. I actually have the research pulled down that they give you the guidelines to meet an accreditation standard.
Your checklist is right in front of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it policies, procedures.
And I know one of the previous interviews, I think Mr. Ball touched on a little bit about the benefits, or looking as an example like Phelps County, the amount of funding that they draw in because of their accreditation and the type of checklist.
Their insurance will go down. Yeah. The accreditation also helps to ensure the transparency. Now, remember, we're people.
Sure.
So the accreditation and transparency is only as good as the people that push it.
Sure.
So that's really key. But the accreditation, or at least upholding to that standard, really pushes that transparency. And that's really critical in, who it is or all the policies and procedures. You can look up CALEA standard agencies and say CALEA. There's one actually not far from here, Springfield maybe.
Okay.
I have to look. And literally everything's on there. The use of force, which officer did it,
Wow.
the policies, procedures. I mean, everything's out there. And before they say, man, this one guy's got a lot of use of force. Well, when you look at statistics, you can't blow it out, because are they in a more, crime ridden area compared to the guy that's got like one,
Right. Right.
So
it may take up the whole graph, but there's only one.
yeah. So, there's a lot that comes to it, but yeah, there's standards, there's different accreditations you can get.
Sure.
They can get a little pricey. We're actually talking about another agency that, we may not be able to afford it. A lot of insurance companies will actually help fund
Really?
it.
Yeah.
Jails can make money, but you're not going to become a millionaire out
Right.
of it.
Okay.
I work for an agency. You can help offset a lot of the costs by the way you run business, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody needs to remember, we are not a money generating business.
Right.
We can help offset by doing certain things. But offsetting costs, everything we do should be, and I've said this before, the budget should be based on the needs of the community, on the needs of the department, which is based on the needs of the community. So when we start looking at accreditation, that is a long-term goal. I'd love to meet that. But we need to get in and look at the budget. The jail, if we can't do a whole department, I can tell you I would do the jail specifically right up front, because that is a monster.
Yeah.
I don't care how big a jail you have. It's a huge liability that we have to assume, because, we can't just let criminals run free.
No, you're right.
So, but yeah, that's something let's tackle it, man.
That's awesome.
You want to get them all in here? Let's all sit around and have a round table.
We may do that. You'd be willing to do that?
Yeah, let's hit it.
If not,
let's bring them all in.
Bring them all in. We'll talk about it. If not, virtually.
Yeah, just have the coffee pot on.
A coffee and lots of it.
Yeah, and water.
Right now it is 7:30. We've had you for an hour and 7 minutes. If there's any questions, call them in right now. I'm giving 2-minute warning. Then you're going to hear from my producer, and the meow is going to come out.
Oh,
she'll be on the phone.
The sound engineer get locked up tonight? Yeah. Oh, the producer will be on the phone?
The producer will be on the phone calling me, saying, you need to get this under control.
Yeah, I'm probably hitting your bedtime. It's getting kind of late.
Well, we do wrap things up early around here. We're not afraid.
Yeah, it's all good.
I don't see any questions, so we're just going to hang up the show. And without any further ado.
Nope. Appreciate it. It's
Thank
been
you,
fun.
man. Until next time.
Yep.
Hit and mute. See you, everybody. Until next time. I'm going to go to visit some cats.
Can I take this off now? We good?
We're clear.